It was a quiet, cold morning in the mountains when Ranger Alex first noticed something unusual. He had spent years patrolling the forest, listening to the rhythms of nature, but today the stillness felt different. As he walked past the trees, the usual sounds of birds and squirrels were absent. The air felt thick with anticipation. Then through the trees he saw them. A mother bear was slowly approaching the cabin, her large form moving with caution. But what shocked him even more was what she carried. Two tiny, fragile bear cubs, one in each of her powerful front paws. They were clearly in distress, their tiny bodies limp and weak. The mother, her fur covered in a thin layer of frost, moved with purpose. It was as if she knew exactly where she was going. Ranger Alex stood still for a moment, processing what he was seeing. It wasn't unusual to see wildlife near the cabin, but this was something else entirely. The mother bear, a creature known for its fierce independence, was bringing her helpless cubs directly to him. She had made a conscious decision to seek human help. Without hesitation, Alex moved toward her. The mother bear stopped just in front of him, and their eyes met. The look in her eyes wasn't one of fear or aggression, but one of desperation and trust. It was clear that the bear had nowhere else to turn, and Alex was her last hope. "Easy, girl," Alex muttered softly, not wanting to startle her. He knew better than anyone that bears could be unpredictable, especially when they felt their young were in danger. The mother lowered her head slightly, as if acknowledging his presence. With great care, Alex approached her cubs. The cubs, barely moving, seemed to be struggling to breathe. Their small bodies were stiff, and Alex could feel the cold radiating from them. He immediately understood the gravity of the situation. The cubs were close to death. Whether they had been abandoned by their mother or separated during a storm, Alex didn't know, but he knew that time was running out. Alex quickly carried the cubs inside the cabin, the mother bear watching from a distance. He laid them on a bed of blankets near the fire, doing his best to warm them up. The room filled with the scent of wet fur and pine, but the warmth from the fire slowly began to penetrate their chilled bodies. Hours passed and the cubs began to stir. Their small, fragile bodies started to twitch as the warmth slowly brought them back to life. Alex watched carefully, his heart pounding in his chest, hoping that he wasn't too late. The cubs were still weak, but there was a faint sign of life in their eyes. Outside, the mother bear remained near the cabin, pacing back and forth. She didn't leave the area. Alex couldn't help but wonder what had brought her here. What had made her choose this cabin, this man? Bears were solitary creatures, fiercely protective of their young, and it was almost unheard of for them to seek help from humans. As the night wore on, Alex continued to monitor the cubs. He fed them a special mix of milk and nutrients, hoping that they could hold on, but his thoughts kept returning to the mother bear. What had driven her to make this choice? Why had she brought her cubs to him? The next morning, Alex awoke to find the cubs still alive, their breathing steadier and their eyes brighter. He couldn't help but feel a surge of relief, but the mother bear's presence outside still lingered in his mind. Something wasn't right. He had to find out why she had come to him, why she had trusted him. As he stepped outside to check on the cubs' progress, Alex noticed something strange. The mother bear was no longer standing at the edge of the trees. Instead, she was lying down in the snow, her head bowed low, watching him. But something else caught Alex's attention, a soft rustling sound behind him. He turned quickly, his heart racing. To his surprise, the mother bear's cubs were standing at the cabin door, their small bodies trembling but filled with life. The cubs had followed him despite their weakness, their instinct to find a safety guiding them. The sight shocked Alex. These cubs had been at death's door just hours ago, and now they were standing on their own, guided by the mother's silent trust. They were alive, and it was thanks to the bond between man and animal. But there was more to the story, something that Alex couldn't quite understand yet. The mother bear, who had trusted him with her cubs, was not leaving. She seemed to be waiting for something, and Alex realized in that moment that the wild had a way of showing its gratitude. The bond had been formed, not through words but through action, through trust. The cubs had repaid the kindness that Alex had shown them by surviving against the odds. And now they were ready to return to the wild. But the mother bear's presence remained, a silent acknowledgement of the debt repaid in a way no one could have predicted. As the days passed, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the bear and her cubs had brought something deeper to his life, something far beyond just the rescue. The mother bear's silent presence near the cabin became an unspoken part of his routine. He had seen many animals come and go in his years as a ranger, but there was something unique about this family. The mother bear, despite the wildness in her eyes, had shown an unexpected trust in him, a human, and he had returned that trust by helping her cubs survive. But trust in the wild was rare, and Alex knew he had been part of something that most people would never experience. Each morning, he found the mother bear pacing the edge of the clearing, her sharp eyes constantly watching the cabin, as if she were waiting for something. Alex didn't feel threatened, though. There was no aggression in her movements, just a quiet understanding, like a parent watching over their children. In the meantime, the cubs were growing stronger. Their once weak bodies were becoming more agile, and their curiosity about the world around them was becoming more evident. They began to explore the surrounding forest, but they always returned to the safety of the cabin. It was as if they had recognized that Alex was no longer a stranger, but someone who had saved their lives. But the mother bear, she was different. While her cubs became more independent, she remained nearby, never too far from the cabin. It was as if she was waiting for something to happen. Or perhaps, as Alex began to realize, she was waiting to see whether her cubs would be ready to return to the wild. Alex continued his work as a ranger, but he couldn't ignore the silent connection that had developed between him and the bears. Every time he stepped outside the cabin, the mother bear's eyes followed him. There was no malice in her gaze, just a deep, solemn understanding that spoke volumes. Then one crisp morning, something unexpected happened. Alex had gone out to check the traps when he heard a rustling noise behind him. He turned quickly, expecting to see a deer or maybe a smaller animal, but what he saw left him in awe. The mother bear stood just a few feet away, her eyes locked onto his. This time she wasn't alone. She had brought her cubs. The cubs, now slightly bigger and more confident, stood in a row behind their mother, watching Alex curiously. The mother bear had made her move. She was allowing her cubs to take their first steps into the wild, but she was doing so in the presence of the one human who had saved them. It was as if she was giving him a final sign of gratitude, acknowledging that her cubs were now ready to return to the world they came from. For a moment, Alex stood frozen. The mother bear didn't move closer, but she didn't back away either. She simply watched him, her gaze steady and unyielding. And then, with a slow, deliberate movement, the mother bear lowered her head, almost like a bow. The gesture was subtle, but it was unmistakable. She was thanking him, acknowledging that, without his help, her cubs would never have had the chance to grow up and experience life in the wild. Alex's heart raced as he processed what was happening. He had never expected this. The wild didn't work like this. Animals didn't thank humans. But here was the proof that sometimes acts of kindness and survival could form a bond between even the most unlikely creatures. And in that moment, Alex realized that this was more than just a rescue. It was a moment of connection, of shared understanding between man and beast. As the cubs wandered closer to their mother, the scene was filled with a quiet kind of beauty. The cubs, still curious but more independent, looked up at Alex. It was as if they were acknowledging him, their silent way of showing gratitude for the life he had given them. The mother bear's gesture had spoken louder than any words could. She trusted him with her children, and now she was ready to let them go. The wind began to pick up, and the first hints of snow started to fall from the sky. It was a fitting reminder that the wilderness was always in motion, always shifting. The mother bear stood up, looking back at her cubs, and for a moment, it seemed as if she was saying her final goodbye. She turned back to Alex, nodding once more, before leading her cubs into the dense trees. Alex stood still, watching them disappear into the wild, knowing this was the right thing for them. They belonged to the forest. They belonged to the wilderness. And while he would always remember their time together, he knew it was time to let them go. But what happened next left Alex speechless. As the mother bear and her cubs disappeared into the trees, a soft rustling sound caught his attention. He turned, expecting it to be another animal, but this time it was something else. The cubs, now fully grown, had returned to the clearing. They weren't alone. Behind them stood the mother bear, watching from